What do you do when nothing's working? When the bills are stacking up, your prayers seem unanswered, and life makes zero sense? What then? You don't need faith when everything is fine. You need faith when all hell breaks loose, when you lose your job, when your friends disappear, when your dreams dry up. That's when you need faith. And in this video, we're talking about how to stand strong in shaky seasons, even when God feels like he's silent and life just feels like it's so unfair. I've been there, praying prayers that felt like they were just bouncing off the ceiling, tithing, serving, showing up, but nothing seemed to move. And it felt like that I was just stuck in this story that I didn't sign up for. You might be feeling that right now. Maybe your business is slow. Your relationship with someone is strained. Your faith is being tested. Let me tell you something. You're not alone. And this message in this video is for you. And so I'm going to read to you a couple of verses in the book of Habakkuk. And it's just a couple of verses in Habakkuk chapter 3. And because these verses are exactly what I'm talking about. And it kind of shows us, how we can get through this. And so Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 17 through 19, it says, even though the fig trees have no blossoms and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crops fails and the fields lie empty and barren, even the flocks die in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer and able to tread upon the heights. Man. So Habakkuk, he just painted this picture of just complete devastation. And so he starts off, he says, the fig tree does not bud, it has no blossoms, and there's no grapes on the vines. Now, what is he saying? This is a picture of total loss, of no fruit, no harvest, no future. And see, what he's really talking about is he's talking about, you see in the Bible times, figs and fig trees and grapes and olives and crops it represented your income. It was your stability. It was your security. It was everything. And so he says that the fig trees have no blossoms. And it's blossoms, like blossoms mean to bud, like there is no bud. And what that means is it's just an absence of a lack of future harvest. And so if it's not budding, that means there's going to be no harvest. And so what this symbolizes a period of uncertainty. Like they don't know what's going to happen because the fig trees is not showing any signs of life. And so this is just like when the business fails, when the bills pile up, when all of your plans fall through. Imagine this. Imagine working for years to build a business and then the market crashes. Everything just dries up. You got no clients, no cash, no backup plan. That's where Habakkuk is standing right now, in the middle of all that. That's where he's standing, staring at an empty field. And then he says, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, no sheep in the pen, no cattle in the stalls. Like, this is deep economic and emotional devastation. That's what this is. He's listing every layer of loss. A loss of food, a loss of income, a loss of their animals. And it's just a loss of hope for the future. He says the olive crops have failed. Like it's not growing. He says, now the olive crops failing, like this is bad because olives were essential for oil. That's where you get olive oil. And in that time, they used olive oil for a lot of stuff. Mainly, they used it for cooking. Like everything that they cook, they used the olive oil to cook with it. We use olive oil today to cook with. And so, even though today we got more options, But they didn't have, this ain't, they didn't have options like that. So they needed olive oil for cooking. They also used olive oil for lights, because I would imagine, they had lamps, and so I don't think they had kerosene or gas or nothing like that. So they used the olive oil to light the lamps. And they used it for so much more. But what I'm telling you is that all of that was a loss. It was a loss. And then he said there was no sheep in the pen. No sheep. And so sheep were a primary source of wool. Like a wool sweater. Sheep was the primary source of meat. You know what I'm saying? They was eating lamb chops back then. So it was the primary source of meat. It was also the primary source of milk. And so, again, this was a significant loss. And then he goes on further. He says there was no cattle in the stalls. That means they had no cows, no oxen. And the cattle was valuable for plowing the fields, because back then they didn't have tractors. They didn't have no John Deere. They had ox and cows. And so they needed the cattle for plowing the fields. They needed the cattle for transportation. And also the cattle was also, the cows and stuff like that, that was also a source of meat. You know what I'm saying? How you gonna eat steak if you ain't got no cows? How you gonna have some hamburger meat? You ain't got no cows. So all of this, and it's not funny, but I'm just saying, all of this was a source of food, of meat. And then the cows, you got milk from the cow. So they didn't have any of that. So what this does, this indicates a complete breakdown in agricultural productivity and economic stability. It was just a total breakdown. This was total devastation. This was worse than a pandemic. This was worse than a recession. It was bad. And so it's like this. It's like getting fired from your job, losing all your savings, and then you just watch all your relationships just unravel all at once. It's not just one thing, it's everything. And yet and still, with all of that being said, all that devastation, all of this barrenness, all this emptiness, and yet he does not panic. After all of that he said, he does not panic. What did he do? He praises. He praises. Because real faith is resilient. It does not deny the pain of what's going on, but real faith is deciding to praise your way through it anyway. And so how does he praise his way through it? Well, he tells us in the next verse. In verse 18, he says, after I've told you all of this, after all of this is what's going on, after all the emptiness, we got no food, no crops, no grapes, no olives, no nothing. After all of this, he says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God, my Savior. You see, this is a pivot, because Habakkuk lists all of the problems that they were facing, all of the things that they're going through. And then he says all of that, and then he pivots, because he had just laid out every reason to quit. He laid out every reason to just give up hope. He listed all these things, and you probably can you probably can write a list of 100 things and reasons for you to quit, for you to give up all hope. You probably could. We all probably could write a list that would just make us give up. But still, he says, yet, even with all that, he says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. You see that word? You see, yet is the language of faith. Not because everything is fixed, because everything is not fixed, but because God is still faithful. He said, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Now, Lord in this verse is Lord, all caps Lord, which means Yahweh, which means that's the covenant name of God. And so that's important, because he is praising the covenant God, the covenant, the God of Israel, who is in covenant with his people. And so he was praising a covenant keeping God, because he knows and he understands that God made a covenant with his people, and God is going to keep his covenant. We may not keep our covenant with God, but God is going to keep his covenant with us. And so that's important because he is praising a covenant God. He says, I will rejoice in the Lord. I will rejoice in Yahweh, the covenant God, because he will never leave us. He will never fail us. He would never forsake us. You know, this makes me think of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was wrongly put in prison for 27 years. 27 years. I don't know if I'd have made it. 27 years he was put in prison, wrongly accused. And he could have got bitter. He could have got mad. And he might have been bitter and mad. I don't know. But he didn't, whatever it was, it didn't last. If he did get mad or bitter, it didn't last long. So he could have got bitter, but he didn't. He kept joy, and he did not result to hatred. You can tell because his focus was not on what he lost, and he lost a lot. He lost 27 years of his life, but his focus was not on what he lost. His focus was what he still believed in. And so he got out of prison after doing a 27-year bid, got out and became the president of the country. This man became the president of South Africa. And so looking at that, none of us have any excuse, because you can go, this man went through hell and high water and still achieve one of the greatest things that a person can achieve in life, is becoming the president of a country. And so that leaves everybody else with no excuse. Yeah, you might be going through something, but there's still hope. There's still a future for you. But all you got to do is continue to believe, continue to have faith. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know how long you're going to be in your situation, but I'm telling you this, you just have to continue to believe. Do not lose hope. Continue to maintain your hope in God. Continue to maintain your hope in the covenant keeping God, who's made a covenant with you. He's made a promise to you that he's going to never leave you nor forsake you. And so you got to hold on to that promise. And so you got to have that yet faith. That yet faith says, my situation may not change, but I'll change. And yet I'm going through it all of this, and yet I will still rejoice in the Lord. And so praise is not a response to the results, because you may not see the results, but praise is a response to a covenant keeping God who you know is still in your corner. And then he says in verse 19, he says, the sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. And he enables me, he allows me to tread upon the heights. What is this? This is power in motion. He's saying when you trust God in the trials that you're going through, he gives you the strength to climb up like a deer on the side of a mountain. That's what this is painting a picture of. A deer on the side of a rocky mountain, because he's going to make your feet be able to be nimble enough to climb this rocky situation. And you might be surrounded by danger. You might be surrounded by all of these failed circumstances. But he says he's going to make your feet like a deer, meaning a deer on a rocky mountain, meaning he's going to keep you steady. He's going to keep you balanced. He's going to keep you above it all. That's why he says he was going to make your feet like a deer so that you can tread upon the heights, meaning a high place. He's going to make you so that you can get above it. That's why David in Psalms 18, David says God makes him sure-footed like a deer. And he said he sets him on high places. You see, this was not just poetic. It's prophetic. And even if you're in the valley, you're down low in the valley. Even if you're low in the valley, God is preparing you for a higher view. God is preparing you to get above it so that you can look out and see that you have the victory. And so what I'm trying to get you to see is trusting God gives you power even in tough situations. And so you don't just survive, you rise. And so I don't know what your situation looks like right now. It may be empty. It may be broken. Maybe you feel like God has forgotten you. But hear this. Hear this. Faith is not proven on the mountaintop. It's proven in the mess. And so you're in the mess to prove your faith. And so if you're still breathing, God is still building. He's not done yet. And so you're in this situation so you can say exactly what Habakkuk said. Even though I'm going through all this, yet I will still rejoice in the Lord. So just say that to yourself. Say that to yourself. Say, even though I'm going through this, I will still rejoice in the Lord. Say it in the comments. Write it in your journal. Speak it over your situation. Yet will I rejoice in the Lord. And so I hope this helps somebody. Please, please share this message. If it helped you, you know it'll help somebody else. Share this message with someone who's just in one of those crazy seasons of life. And so I thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.